Worst criminals who will never leave prison. These criminals committed crimes so disturbing that the world agrees they should never walk free again. These cases shocked entire countries, destroyed families, and left scars that will never fade. We ranked them by the scale and brutality of their crimes, and the last one is the most horrifying of them all. 12. Chris Watts. Chris Watts appeared to be a normal family man, but in 2018 he murdered his pregnant wife inside their home. After that, he killed his 2 young daughters and transported their bodies to an oil work site where he hid them in separate locations. He then went on television pretending his family had disappeared and even pleaded for their safe return. Investigators quickly noticed inconsistencies in his story, and after intense questioning, he confessed to the murders. He was sentenced to multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole, meaning he will spend the rest of his life in prison. 11. Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader called himself BTK, which stood for Bind, Torture, Kill, and he terrorized a city for decades. He murdered entire families inside their homes and later sent letters to police describing the crimes in disturbing detail. Rader enjoyed taunting investigators and even demanded media attention while he remained free. Years later, he resumed communication with police and unknowingly provided digital evidence that led to his arrest. When authorities confronted him, he calmly confessed to multiple murders. The court sentenced him to 10 consecutive life sentences, ensuring he will never be released. 10. Gary Ridgway. Gary Ridgway lived a quiet life, but he secretly became one of the most prolific serial killers in history. Over many years, he targeted vulnerable women, strangled them, and dumped their bodies in remote areas near rivers and forests. Investigators eventually linked dozens of cases to him, and Ridgway later confessed to 49 murders, although authorities believe the real number could be higher. He even admitted returning to crime scenes after the killings. Ridgway accepted a plea deal to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. 9. James Holmes. In 2012, James Holmes entered a packed movie theater during a midnight premiere. He released gas into the room, then opened fire on the audience, causing chaos and panic. People tried to escape while others hid between seats, but the attack lasted long enough to kill 12 people and injure dozens more. The event shocked the entire country and led to one of the most high-profile trials in recent history. Holmes was ultimately convicted and sentenced to 12 life sentences, plus thousands of additional years, ensuring he will never leave prison. 8. Nikolas Cruz. Nikolas Cruz walked into his former high school carrying a rifle and extra ammunition. He pulled the fire alarm, forcing students and teachers into the hallways where they became easy targets. Cruz then began shooting, moving through the building and firing repeatedly. Within minutes, 17 people were killed and many others were injured. The attack devastated families and sparked nationwide debate. Cruz later pleaded guilty and received life in prison without the possibility of parole. 7. Dylann Roof. Dylann Roof entered a church and quietly joined a Bible study group. The people inside welcomed him and prayed together, unaware of his intentions. After sitting with them for nearly an hour, Roof suddenly opened fire on the group. 9 people were killed in what became one of the most disturbing attacks inside a place of worship. Authorities captured him the next day, and he later showed no remorse during trial. The court sentenced him to life in prison, ensuring he will never be released. 6. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy appeared charming and intelligent, which allowed him to gain the trust of his victims. He often pretended to be injured and asked young women for help before kidnapping them. Bundy later confessed to around 30 murders, though investigators believe the number could be much higher. He even escaped from prison twice and committed additional killings while on the run. After his final capture, he was convicted and eventually executed, but his crimes remain some of the most disturbing serial killings ever recorded. 5. Anders Behring Breivik. Anders Breivik carried out a 2-part attack that shocked the world. He first detonated a powerful bomb in a city center, killing several people instantly. After that, he traveled to a youth camp on an island and began systematically hunting teenagers. Many tried to hide or swim away, but the attack lasted over an hour. By the end, 77 people were dead. Breivik was arrested and sentenced under a special law that allows his imprisonment to be extended indefinitely, meaning he could remain in prison for life. 4. Adam Lanza. Adam Lanza began by killing his mother at home before driving to an elementary school. He forced his way inside and opened fire in classrooms filled with young children. Teachers attempted to protect students, but the attack happened quickly. 20 children and 6 staff members were killed in one of the most heartbreaking school shootings ever. Lanza died at the scene, but the scale of the tragedy left lasting impact across the world. 3. Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh parked a truck filled with explosives outside a federal building. When the bomb detonated, the explosion destroyed much of the structure and shattered windows far away. Rescue workers searched through rubble for survivors, while families waited desperately for news. 168 people were killed, including 19 children in a daycare center. McVeigh was later captured, convicted, and executed, but the attack remains one of the deadliest acts of domestic terrorism. 2. Pedro Rodrigues Filho. Pedro Rodrigues Filho began committing violent crimes at a young age and continued killing both outside and inside prison. He targeted people he believed were criminals, but his actions became increasingly brutal. Filho admitted to killing dozens of victims, including his own father, and even attacked other inmates while incarcerated. Authorities linked him to more than 70 murders. He spent decades behind bars and became known as one of the most violent prisoners ever recorded. 1. Andrei Chikatilo. Andrei Chikatilo terrorized an entire region for years by targeting children, teenagers, and vulnerable women. He lured victims to isolated areas where he brutally murdered them and left their bodies hidden. Investigators struggled to identify him, allowing the killings to continue. Eventually, authorities gathered enough evidence to arrest him, and he later confessed to more than 50 murders. The scale and brutality of his crimes shocked the world, and he was sentenced to death, ending one of the most horrifying serial killer cases in history. These criminals looked ordinary, but their actions were anything but normal. Their crimes shocked the world and ensured they would never experience freedom again. Which case disturbed you the most?